Hi, I'm Sam here with a Homestead Box, and today we're going to start our strop making kit project. Now, whether you have a full shop full of power tools or just a few simple hand tools, we're going to kind of take you through the steps of putting this strop together. One thing I want you all to remember is to keep this project simple. It's just a strop. It's going to be a tool that serves a purpose later on. So don't get too crazy with it. We're going to use hand tools today. Let's see what I got in my little box here. So one thing I started doing a while back is going to yard sales and flea markets and just kind of collecting old tools. But we're not going to need all this. We're just going to grab, this is a homemade marking gauge. This one's from Harbor Freight, I think, for just a few bucks. It's not the best one. Sanding block, which came in your Homestead Box. Good bit and brace. I think we can cover all of our sawing with this cheap, inexpensive coping saw. And this is a homemade bench hook. So let's get started. Also for this project, you're going to need your leather strop from your Homestead Box. A piece of scrap wood. This is a piece of pallet wood that we took off of a pallet. And some wood glue. Oh, I forgot. Also, a square and some clamps. Clamps are necessary, square not so much. Good to have. Okay, let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to do is cut our wood to length. We want to avoid any spots with knots, so we're going to use this nice clear end. A bench hook is just a piece of wood with two other pieces of wood screwed and glued to it, so when it catches the edge of the bench, we can use that and our body weight as a clamp. Now, something you're going to see me not do in this project is measure anything. We're going to use the real materials as our guide. So, just to cut it to length, we're gonna need at least this much for the strop. So I'm going to mark that with my marking knife, just a little light stroke. And then I'm going to come back. I could use about this much for a handle. So I'm just going to put a mark there, grab my square, square it up like this. Make light cuts first. If you're using a marking knife, you can use a pencil for this. Make light cuts and then heavier cuts. Oop, don't get off your square though. Heavier cuts. So you got a pretty deep line there. And then what I like to do, because I'm going to saw this by hand, is cut a V. Be very careful. And cut a V back into that straight cut to make a little trough. It's just a good woodworking practice. Help you stay straight on that cut. Alright, that looks good. Now, to make this cross cut, you could use this coping saw. I'm going to use this old hand saw I picked up at a flea market. It's still sticky sharp, so you just put your hand on it, and if it sticks, it'll probably cut this. So get your bench hook, start in that trough. You just walk it one tooth back at a time in the mark you made. Until you get all of the teeth engaged. Alright. Now we're cut to length. Now we need to get this ripped into the correct width. For that, we're going to put our you can do it two ways. You can either put this on here, make a mark with a pencil, and just cut on the outside edge of that line to leave you a little working space. what I'm going to do is use a homemade marking gauge. Put my leather in. Oop. Go right up to it. Tighten the thumb screw. And need a pencil. There's a pencil. So we're gonna make this our face edge, and that's another face. So to use a marking gauge, I've got the width of my strop locked into the gauge. So now I just keep the fence against the board. As long as I keep the fence pressed against the board, it's going to make a mark. Now that's really hard to see on the camera. I'm just going to fill that in with pencil. Oh, kind of ran out of my mark. I need to make that deeper. There we go. Ooh. Alright. Then on the back, make sure you use the same edge as you did for the front. On the back, show you how to use this marking gauge. Same concept. It's got a thumb screw here. We put the strop in. We get it to the point. We tighten the thumb screw. Same face edge. Okay. Now, since we've got this needle, the scratcher, it's basically a scratch all and a guide all. Alright, we put the fence, we tilt, and then we run our mark. Lightly, light strokes at first, and then you can follow up with heavier strokes. And that'll keep us the width of that. Alright, so now you got both sides marked. Now, the technique we're going to use here, we're just going to take our coping saw, we're going to clamp it to our bench. That's why it's good to have a work surface that has a little bit of a lip on it, so you can use these clamps. We're just keeping it simple. No woodworking devices necessary, just a couple of simple tools that can be had for pretty cheap. This isn't even a very good coping saw. So I'm going to turn it so that the neck is on the outside. Then we're going to start. So you see the coping saw doesn't provide the straightest of cuts, but that's okay. It's just a strop. So you're going to want to save this piece of scrap wood. For the handle shape, I thought, why not use a template? I'm not a very good freehand drawer. And if you got a Homestead Box, you got a farmer's file. So just use the handle from the farmer's file. We're going to put it on the edge here. And you see the shoulders don't come. So this is where our leather will stop, right here. Okay? So we're just going to trace. I want to make these actually come out here. Alright, and and you can do the handle shape that you like. Deep South Homestead used a draw knife and made himself just a completely round handle. That's okay. Put a little hanger hole. I like that size. Now we're just going to clamp this to the bench and cut this rough shape out. Remember, if you stay away from your line just a little bit, you can go back and clean that up with some other tools. So for this cut, we're going to stay just a little outside of our lines so we can make these turns. So you see what happens in southern yellow pine. We've got hard and soft areas, and if you get hung in one of those soft areas, the saw is going to cut really fast and it'll just suck you into it. So when you have to flare back out into one of the hard areas, it can be a little tough. When we get out here, you notice the handle starts flexing, so we're going to move this in for just a second. So that's your roughed in handle. So now that our saw work is done, we got a couple of options for finishing this handle off. You can actually use the same file that you got. It's going to be slow. Put on southern pine. Use it in one direction. It's gonna work just fine. So that's one option, and you can keep playing with that in these corners. You can use your sanding block. That may take the longest. Okay, cleaning all that up. Let's see, what else do we have at our disposal? We got a carving knife over here, which you can use your open nail number 8. Just be really careful with it. So when you're carving bevels, you know, on a straightaway, you want to pay attention to the grain direction, but in these curves you always want to cut downhill. And what that means, you know, this is downhill, this is downhill. As you cut uphill, you risk splitting out just like that. So always cut downhill when you're carving. Alright, same thing on this side. Just bevel these edges off so they're comfortable to hold. Doesn't have to be perfect or fancy. Do a good job though. Practice your, see, when against the grain there. Practice your woodworking skills on little projects like this where you can mess up, and then you'll get good practice in for when it has to be perfect. So you can work on that handle as much as you like. Let's drill our hole. Now let me tell you about bit and brace. You can find these at yard sales or antique stores for hardly anything. They're actually really easy to restore as long as the chuck works. The ratchet, really, as long as it'll lock one way or the other. This one ratchets. It was in good shape when I bought it. I keep it locked. Bits are hardly ever in good shape, and you can hardly ever find a set. They're all for hardwood. Softwood is a much more coarse lead screw. So when we do this, we put this in the center, we press down. It's gonna take more pressure, and the idea with this is to just go through. You won't screw through your bench until that lead screw pokes out the other side. It makes a little hole. Okay, I went a little crooked there, but alright, clamp it back down, and then turn it over, clamp it back up, put it in that hole, trying to kind of steer it back. It's not very well in the center. I mean, you hear it break through like that. Alright, so then you can take your pocket knife or a little chip carving knife and just clean up that burr on that edge, just like that. Okay, clean that up with sandpaper later. I could have done a little better job on that. That was sloppy. But it's a strop. Just another shop tool. Okay. Now, I want to show you a little bonus tool that was made by the Millions, and it was this little Stanley block plane. This is an old one. I even forgot its number. I think a number 9 or something like that. 9.5. It's a adjustable mouth block plane. And you can, when I bought this, I bought it for $5 or $6. It was rusted like crazy. I cleaned it up, flattened the sole. There's some setup involved. Maybe we'll do a video on that one day. And man, you can get this thing razor sharp. I'll just show you what it does, but this is a great tool. Never test this way. Great tool to have hanging around the shop. So we close that mouth up. We take this rough side of this, and we can clean that, all that roughness up right there. Alright. Alright, and you can see where we made some rough saw marks here. Clean the saw marks off that side. You can bevel corners. It's just a great tool to have in a woodworking shop. Like I said, it cost me $5 or $6. I would pay no more than 15 for one if I saw one. But it's an antique, pre-World War II tool. But you can take your sanding block, just knock the sharp edge off these corners so you don't get splintering. Alright, now before we sand it, to our final stage, we want to glue our strop piece to our handle, essentially. Okay, we've done a couple with the rough side up. I like that. I've already got one. I made one when we tested these things out. So I'm going to glue the rough side and make a smooth strop on this one. So So what I'm going to do, in your project card it says Type Bond. I still stand by that. Use Type Bond. We had Gorilla Glue, but again, keep it simple. Don't make a special trip anywhere just for glue. This will work. Alright. So make sure you get a good bit of glue. Wood glue won't hurt you, so just use your finger. Spread it out to the edges. See that line we made earlier? Make sure we get some there. Alright. Now we place this here, smooth that out, get glue on it, pick it up, make sure we're getting good coverage. Alright, now let's put it back on. Try not to get glue up here. We can do your best to take that off. Man. Or get it everywhere like I'm doing. The reason I said don't get it everywhere because you don't want your clamp board sticking, and to prevent a little bit of that, we're going to put a piece of paper on there and put our, let's do this. Alright, now you're going to need to take your clamps clamp this together as best you can so we've got good adhesion everywhere. Oop. So my leather slipped off, so you just want to line that back up. Alright, let's let that sit for about an hour and we'll come back and clean it up. Okay, so we've let the glue dry. Now we're going to pop these clamps off. We should have good stickiness. Now you see my strop kind of curved and warped. That's okay, because we're going to clean all that up. Now it's good to go like this, but if you want to add that little extra bit, you can take your Opinel and come right down these edges and just take that extra leather off. So now that we got that filleted off, just take your sanding block and you can work that edge down. Just keep working it down till it all smooths off. Or we can take our block plane, same thing. That just cleans that up nicely. Alright, so for that side we got a little glue. Clean that up either with a knife and a sanding block or a block plane. Sand that up, knock all the corners off. Okay, so then we can rub that down with boiled linseed oil. You can leave it raw, it's really your choice. I'm gonna leave this one raw just because it's gonna get dirty and messed up. It's a tool. Alright. So now that we've got that done, we take our green honing compound and we load our strop up. Alright, that's plenty of compound. So when you strop a blade, you don't go into the blade like this. You want to pull back and strop off the edge. Okay? If you want to get fancy, you roll the back over. Alright. So after it's nice and stropped up, should be razor sharp. Maybe it'll shave hair. Yeah. So now you got a razor sharp knife that you can keep razor sharp. Keep it locked. So that's a little bit about what you can do with a strop. Just a few simple tools, some wood glue, some recycled wood, and you've got yourself an awesome tool. This can be used on axes, be used on knives, of course, planes, chisels, just whatever blades you need that need to be hair shaven sharp. Use your strop, use your green honing compound. Thanks for joining us today. If you don't mind, like, subscribe to our channel to get updates on other projects that come in future boxes. Thanks. It'll take all that glue off as well. Just kind of fillet that leather and hit your hand and cut your hand wide open.